Today we will be talking to one of our consultant experts from the shipping industry, Captain Abhishek Nair, about the ship blockage in the Suez Canal. Fortunately, the attempts to free the ship have been successful, but it showed once again how connected the trade market is in times of increasing globalization. Welcome, Abhishek.
Morning, Julian. Thanks for having me here.
I would like to start with the first question, which is really interesting. How did the vessel got stuck in the first place?
Julian, it's a great question, and I'm sure it's something that is of great interest to people all around the world. But I should say that any incident like this, navigation incident like this, the causes for this it's a confluence of many factors. And since this incident has just happened and it is currently under investigation, I really don't think it is right of us to get into too much of speculation on this. But what we do know is that there was an error of navigation for sure. And I myself, as having been a master mariner and having been through the Suez Canal with ships that were deeper, heavier, and wider than the Ever Given itself, and having been actually trained under the guidance of some of the very experienced pilots of the Suez Canal, I can at least give my perspective to this. So if you look at the Suez Canal, it's a fairly narrow channel. So even though on the surface you can see that it's about 300 meters wide, but the sides of the Suez Canal, they taper sharply inwards. So it's like an inverted trapezium, to a level where, at a depth of about 20 meters, the width of the canal is only about 120 meters. So when you look at it from the perspective of the Ever Given, she has a width of about 60 meters. So that says that you only have about 40 meters on each side of the ship, about 40 to 45 meters on each side of the ship. So it's very, very narrow from the perspective of a large ship like the Ever Given. So it is extremely imperative that while navigating through this channel, the ship is kept right at the middle of the axis of the canal. And the moment you are slightly off the middle of the axis of the canal, the forces of hydrodynamics, they play real havoc with your ship, and from what can be seen from the the lots of tracking websites that you have around, we can see that yes, there was an error in navigation for sure, due to, again, there were lots of factors probably affecting it, and the vessel was a slightly off the axis of the canal, and that set off a chain reaction, which eventually led to the ship getting grounded in such a manner that she completely blocked the canal. That is where we are. Yeah. So again, let me just tell you that there are lots of ships passing through the canal every day, and almost all of them, always all of them, they pass, without any kind of an incident. So it is rather unfortunate that this had to happen. But again, kudos to the Suez Canal Authority and the salvage team to have got it out and cleared the canal in 6 days.
Great. So let me follow up with the next question. How do you think it could have been prevented?
Again, great question, Julian. Again, we have the benefit of hindsight sitting here and asking these questions, of course. But yeah, in the short term, the way this risk is being managed will definitely change. So what is definitely available to, out there to mariners and to the canal authorities is obviously the use of tugboats. So using of an additional tugboat while, especially when navigating a large ship, like the Ever Given through the canal, that could be made mandatory. That is probably one of the things that would be considered. You have an escort tug. That obviously puts up, the cost of transport through canal will definitely rocket high. But that is something that will have to be used. And also, I would also think about reduction of speed during, while you're transiting the canal. That will also be something that will be considered. And also, I'll also say that, in the long term, there are discussions about deepening the canal itself. That will very much depend on trade itself. Is there a need to deepen the canal? Are we going to have even bigger ships? So that will be taken into consideration in deciding whether the canal needs to be deepened or not.
Okay, great. Thank you for the answer, Abhishek. If we look at it on a larger scale, what do you think, what implications did it have on international trade?
Well, it did have a huge impact on international trade for sure. I do know that there are lots of numbers floating around where we say, hey, 10 to 12% of world trade actually passes through the Suez Canal. And it's actually nice that an incident like this has actually brought the highlight to the shipping industry and we are now beginning to realize, hey, this is a maritime choke point. This is a choke point for our entire trade. So it's good that we are getting, the consumer at large is getting more educated about this. But if I just had to look at it from a consumer perspective, and if you think of somebody sitting in Europe, typically about 20-25% of what we eat and what we wear, all this is coming in from Asia. And if you're looking at things like electronics, well, then it goes up to like 50% to 55%. So yeah. So and now let's not just look at somebody sitting in Europe. Let's look at somebody from India, where I'm from. If I'm a small manufacturer in India, and almost 30 to 33% of my exports going to EU, or my total exports are going to the EU, and they go through the Suez Canal. Similarly, if I'm looking at somebody in China, for him it's about 28% of all his exports are going through the Suez Canal again. So what you can see is that is this small exporter in India or China, is he fulfilling all his requirements with his customer sitting in Europe? So even he is going to be losing out. Any person sitting in India, China, these small, the small SMEs, they are all losing out. They are all having a huge risk here. And just to keep it a little more lighter, I should say that if you're sitting in Europe here and you were expecting a much longer discount season this April, that's not going to happen.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very, very insightful. So if you had to summarize, what would you say? What learnings do we take from it for the future?
Well, definitely what the learnings that we can see from this is that the shipping industry is very vital for international trade. That is something that has really been lamented upon in this, and we are living in a globalized economy, so that is becoming even more important. But I would say, in the longer term, what will happen is the way we manage our risks, that is going to change. So if you look at supply chain, in supply chain, we are already talking about nearshoring or about diversifying our supply chains. So it's not just about diversifying our supply chain, okay, not just diversifying the supply points itself. It's also about diversification of the trade lane itself. Because let's not forget, you might say, okay, I'm depending too much on China, so I will diversify it and start diversifying my supply point to let's say Vietnam. But even that will also flow through the Suez Canal. So you also need to think about diversifying your entire trade lane itself. And other than that, it's also going to be about in supply chain dynamics, we speak about safety stock or inventory. So that is going to increase. So you're going to look at firms are will need to think about, okay, I might need to mitigate this risk. I might need to keep higher inventory, or my safety stock increases. And let's not forget, when firms do that, the consumer is the end consumer is the one who's going to be paying for it. So that's how it goes. Again, let me just summarize and say that in the short term, freight rates will definitely go up, and in the long term, also I do see that there will be some changes in the supply chain for sure.
Great. Thank you for this short but very informative interview. If you want to know more about Captain Abhishek Nair and his expertise, stay tuned for this month's EPH Focus interview, where he will explain trends and future implications of the shipping industry. Thanks, Abhishek.
Thanks, Julian.